Speciation, very, very, very important to the whole thing of evolution because originally our thought process that we started with one or a few or a dozen or so animals or organisms. Then we went from there. We all started with a few. We went to as many organisms or as many species as we have today. Okay, these are the processes by which we went through them. Speciation. Okay, so what is it? Speciation is the formation of a new species through evolutionary means. And we've talked through about a bunch of them, adaptations because of the environment, some things like that. Okay? Speciation results in a new species that are very similar in characteristics to the old species. Okay? That's very important. You're not going from, like a lizard to a bald eagle in one step. You're going from one owl to a different owl. Okay? Real subtle changes until the point where they're a completely new species. Okay, that's the big thing. They're very, 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 very similar. Okay, now some terminology. Now, gene flow. Okay, this is the movement of genes in and out of a population. Okay, or basically, for whatever reason, a whole bunch of one type of gene decides to leave a population, or a whole different set of genes comes into a population. Okay, that's gene flow. Now, genetic drift. Now, this is the random change in the allele frequency in a population. So the allele frequency, think of like, I don't know. So like think of a allele frequency like blue eyes. Okay, let's say in Las Vegas, 50 years ago, 90% of the people here in Las Vegas had blue eyes. But genetic drift happens. Now, only, I don't know, let's say 30% of the allele frequency or the people with blue eyes are here. That's genetic drift, kind of just random changes in how frequent a certain characteristic is. Okay, now random mating. This is where mating of individuals is not determined by another organism's phenotype. Now, phenotype, as we talked about, phenotype's the physical appearance. This is typically, like we talked about with Mendel and the flowers, flowers do random mating. They basically just kind of like put their pollen into the air and hope it lands on a flower. That's random mating. It's not like he's just like checking out the flower from across the vineyard or from across the field and he like pays off some bee to take the pollen over to her. Like it's just random. Okay, just however the wind takes it. That's random mating. Now, the biological species concept. So this guy named Ernest Mayr came up with this whole thing. Okay? He said that a species is a population of organisms that can successfully interbreed but cannot breed with other groups. That's number 4. Okay, they can successfully interbreed, or basically a population is a group of organisms that can have kids, but they can't have kids with a different group. Okay, that should be pretty straightforward. And that's the definition, or a good example, I'm going to go back for a second, of why these two are completely separate species. Okay, they're very, very, very similar, but the northern spotted owl can't mate and have kids with the Mexican spotted owl anymore. That's why they're two different species. Okay. Now some speciation methods. Okay, this is number 5. What are the two of them? There's allopatric and sympatric speciation. Okay, allopatric and sympatric speciation. We'll go through both of those. Okay, now allopatric speciation. Okay, this occurs when a species arises as a result of geographic isolation. Okay, or they get far and far away from each other to basically the point where they can no longer, like, they don't cross paths with the other guys anymore. Okay, now allopatric actually means different homelands. So let's say that these two species of wild boar, they used to be right next to each other. Then all of a sudden a huge earthquake happens, and all of a sudden you got the Rocky Mountains or the Himalayan mountains in between them. Those guys will never see those guys again. Therefore, they both evolve based on their different environment to the point where they're no longer viable to mate together and have successful kids. Okay, that's allopatric speciation. Okay, geographic isolation, very far away from each other. They're never going to cross paths. Okay, now geographic isolation, like the name implies, this is number 7, is the physical separation of members. Okay, they just simply physically can't get near each other. Okay, and like I was just talking about, when the population is divided, natural selection and genetic drift cause the two populations to diverge to the point where they can't interbreed anymore, where they become so different they can't breed and get together anymore. Okay, So now sympatric speciation, this occurs when two subpopulations become reproductively isolated within the same geographic area. And I know that sounds weird, but think about it in a very basic sense. Think about like, we're in the redwood forest in California. Okay, and there's an ant colony, 200 feet in the air on one redwood forest tree. A bird lands on the tree branch, kind of hanging out there for a little bit. A few ants just kind of randomly hop onto the bird's feet. The bird flies, I don't know, let's say a quarter mile in one direction and lands 200 feet up in a different tree where there is no ant colony. Now, those guys are within the same geographic area. They're only a quarter mile from home. But are those guys going to know how to climb down one tree, walk in the right direction a quarter mile and find the correct tree and walk all the way back up to the other guys? Probably not. That's how sympatric speciation works. Okay, they're reproductively isolated or they can't get back to their original home colony, but they're really close to each other. Okay, like I just talked about. Okay, some insects going from one plant move to a new plant. Okay, now reproductive isolation. This results from barriers to successful breeding between populations of the same group. Okay, these again are the limpets. Okay, we were talking about with the guys that live on the rocks. If that guy went over to mate with that guy, but he's living on the bright white rock and he's nice and camouflaged, he's going to get eaten. Okay, same general idea that we were talking about. Basically, they can't get to each other or they're going to get eaten, and so that way they can't interbreed anymore. Okay, now there's rates of speciation. Okay, there's a few of them. The gradualism, okay, speciation occurs at regular, gradual rates, or kind of slowly but surely. Now, there's punctuated equilibrium, or the thought that speciation occurs in small bursts. Like nothing is happening, nothing is happening, nothing is happening, boom, new species, really fast. Then again, nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens, new species. Okay, so this right here, this is the first one. Okay, that's gradualism there. You can see kind of slowly but surely over time things are changing. Okay, now the other side, this is the punctuated equilibrium, like I was saying. No change, no change, no change, no change. Boom, new species. And then no change for a while. Okay, no change, no change, no change. All of a sudden, really quick, new species. That's the difference. Gradualism, punctuated equilibrium. Okay, slowly but surely, nothing happens for a while, then all of a sudden a huge change. Okay, as for which one it actually is, we don't know. Evolution takes so long, it's not like we can just like hang out and observe and watch it until something happens. Okay, so gradualism, punctuated equilibrium.